Hey, before the video starts, please go follow me on Twitch. If, watch my streams as well. I'd appreciate it. Okay, that's all. Let's get into the video. You know the drill by now. Hey guys, what's up? Fur Daddy here. Today I'm coming at you with a guide on the Bozjan Southern Front. This is going to play a lot like my previous Eureka guide, but I'm going to do my best to kind of fit it all into one video. And to do that, I'm going to be very careful about the stuff that I cover. So this video is going to cover how to progress through Bozja, how to unlock it, complete the storyline, and tips for just like making your experience there better. What I won't be doing is going into the relic weapon, because there's already great videos and there's plenty of videos about how to get your relic weapon, and because a lot of it is done like outside of Bozja, I don't really think it's worth it to include it in the Bozja video, so I'll provide some links in the description for that. But this video is going to be about unlocking Bozja, completing it in a relatively quick manner, and tips on just not getting murked by all the enemies out there. So let's get into it. So I think the obvious question that you might be wondering if you just stumbled upon this video is, why do Bozja a month before Endwalker comes out? And that is a good question. There's a few reasons. One, if you're not fully geared and you don't feel like getting the soon-to-be Poetics gear, there's some interesting gear you can get from Zadnor that's all 525. It's also good like Final Fantasy, I believe, 12 themed glamour. So that's a good use of your time. You can make money doing it, and it's also just fun, and the storyline of it is really good. So these are all reasons for you to do this content. I think it's a great thing to do. Like the storyline is way more cohesive than the storyline for like Eureka, and I believe that it's setting up some stuff that's going to come up in Endwalker. Although they haven't said that. I have my personal opinions. I think you should do it before Endwalker comes out. With those in mind, let's get into the video proper. Another really useful thing that you can get out of Bozja is it's single-handedly the fastest way to level up jobs, even tanks and healers. Once you get to Zadnor, it is an incredibly fast way to level. So unlocking this content is a little bit less than straightforward, and it's part of the reason why I wanted to make this video, because when I looked online, a lot of people just said, oh, do these quests, but the quests that they said have pre-existing requirements. So assuming that you just finished the main scenario of Shadowbringers and you haven't actually like gone back and done any of the side content for Stormblood, I'm gonna go on that assumption because I think that's a lot of the people that are going to be doing Bozja right now. So the first series that you're gonna want to do is the Return to Ivalice raid series that was released with Stormblood. That is 3 alliance raids and this whole pretty fun quest line that'll probably take you the better part of a day to complete, and that is a requirement to unlock Bozja. It sets you up to the Ivalice region in Final Fantasy XIV, and it just sets up a lot of the stuff that's going to come up later on in the story. Not only that, but it's also mandatory. So you get the first quest, Dramatis Personae, here, where I am right now, and I have the location on the map, and then you can sort of just follow the storyline throughout. If you may have started this quest and you're like somewhere in the middle of the storyline, I also have a link to the entire quest line in the description. So once you've finished the City of Lost Angels, you've completed that part of the quest line, and then Kaiten here should have another quest for you called Hail to the Queen, which begins the 5.25 Shadowbringers aspect of the content, which will actually unlock Bozja for you. So during this quest line, you're going to complete the quest Path to the Past, and you will unlock the region Gangos. And before I go there to continue this tutorial, I just want to let you guys know, and this is for people who have done Bozja and haven't, there's a really fast way to get to Gangos. You don't have to go and talk to the guy every time. If you attune to all the aetheryte crystals in Doma, in the Doman Enclave, you can use the central aetheryte there to teleport directly to Gangos, and I'll show you that now. Yeah, so if you attune to all 3 of these areas, the Ferry Docks, the Southern Enclave, and the Northern Enclave, you can use the Aetherite here and just teleport directly to Gangos, which saves you a lot of time going to the person every single time. So hopefully that got to some people who have even done Bozja before. So there you go. So once you're in Gangos, you'll continue a few more quests. You'll have a really cool story sequence with which is awesome, and it unlocks another trial, which if you're a triple triad I'm getting off track. Okay, so eventually you will do the quest Where Eagles Nest, and you will actually unlock the Bozjan Southern Front proper, and we can begin. So I'll meet you guys on the battlefield, soldiers. Alright, so now that we are in Bozja, you can accept all the quests here while I go over some of the basics of the area that you need to know. So a few basics just for the rules that are in place in Bozja. You can change classes freely in here, although if you do that you lose lost actions, which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, you can change classes freely. You can form parties. You earn job experience here, so if you enter a job at level 71, you can actually get really good leveling XP from this place. Some of the best in the game, I would say. And yeah, so when you enter, you're brought up to level 80, and your item level is adjusted to 430, and that's no matter what armor you have. Yeah, so the other thing you should know is any actions that require you to complete like a specific job quest will not be available if you haven't completed the quest for it. So if you've just boosted and well, the boost covers it, but you know, if you have a class at 70, you haven't done any of your job quests, you will not be able to use those actions here even though you're at 80. So yeah, you can also mount, and that's all about the rules. So let's get into some of the functions that exist in the area. So let's go over this red thing that appeared when you got here. So this HUD here is your Mettle and your resistance rank, and this tracks your inventory in the area, your level, your progression through the story, as well as your deployment in critical engagements. And I'll discuss all those things separately. But going over the overall HUD here, you have the resistance rank at the top, and that sort of marks your progression through the storyline of Bozja. Unlike Eureka, it doesn't increase your ability to do damage or anything like that. It just shows you how far you are in the story, and that's all. Underneath, you have your Mettle, and your Mettle functions as your experience in this area. It's what you use to rank up to the subsequent resistance ranks, and when you reach max rank, it's what you use to trade in for extra power in the area. Underneath that, you have your Bozjan clusters. Those work in the same way as the fragments that you would get in Eureka somewhat, where you can basically trade them into a vendor, and you can get all kinds of goodies with those. But again, they don't serve any main purpose in Bozja other than getting items from the store there, which I'll discuss as well in a little bit. So what you just need to know is your main goal is to increase your resistance rank, and once you reach level 5 in your resistance rank, you will start losing Mettle. And this is widely agreed upon as the worst aspect of Bozja, compared to Eureka, where in Eureka you didn't lose any elemental experience if you just died. You had to respawn to lose it. You lose Mettle just by dying, so that can really make it a slog to progress through these areas, which is why it's even more vital here to party up, to make sure you're in groups with people, whether you're fighting a skirmish or a critical engagement, and so you have some survivability. So now that we've discussed the basics of the HUD and overlay, we can discuss some of the other mechanics that Bozja presents us. So during the quest line, they'll go over all the people in the base camp and what they do, but I thought I would explain it to you here, just so you have an all-in-one package and you don't have to rely on the game's notoriously less than stellar tutorials. So just starting from the left side of the camp and moving around, we have the Resistance Quartermaster here. You can exchange Bozjan clusters here, and you can get fragments, which you'll be able to use for like special Bozja specific abilities, which I'll talk about later in the video, as well as some other cosmetic things like triple triad cards and a very funny looking mount. Yeah, so you can get all that from here. The most notable thing here for the time being is the Bozjan Southern Front riding map. I highly recommend you get this. And as for obtaining clusters, you just get them from killing random enemies. Occasionally, you'll see people in the shout chat talk about like cluster farm parties, and you can get in one of those. And just joining one of those passively will give you, not passively, you should be killing them with your party, but joining that will get you the clusters that you need. Next up, we have the Resistance Historian. So during your time in Bozja, you will obtain field notes from doing various activities. you'll be able to exchange these here for lock boxes to trade into the locksmith, who's just over here, and he gives you a whole bunch of different items. You can get the regular Gabriel mount from here, as well as some hairstyles and just some really good stuff. The whole loot table is in the description. I have a whole bunch of different links there, so that should be able to help you out as well. So next we have the resistance supplier, and this guy here is going to be relevant to you when you are able to get these coins from the resistance rank 10 raid. And that's just gear that you get. It looks great. The gear that I use in all my videos is the Bozjan coat of fending. I think this is some of the best looking gear in the game. And when you augment this gear, you are able to get haste in the area, which improves your skill speed and spell speed. So that's really useful. And I'll get into augmenting and some of the more advanced Bozjan stuff at the very end of this video. Last but not least, we have the Resistance Appraiser and the Lost Finds cache. And these are what I was discussing earlier with the Bozja specific actions. And I'll go more in depth into those here before we discuss what's out on the actual battlefield. During your course of leveling up, you will obtain different fragments that you will be able to show to the Resistance Appraiser. And those will unlock items and then a bunch of actions. If you've done Eureka, this should look like a improvement to the lost actions that you have there. But yeah, so how this works basically is you exchange them for these different abilities that fill up this area here. And then you slot these in by loading them into your holster, which is like your inventory. So you can load like a whole bunch of different stuff into here all together. And you can, so load them all in and then confirm. And then in your Lost Finds holster, you'll actually like have all that stuff. So they do different abilities. And again, once I get into the actual strategy for Bozja after the general overview, I'll get into some of the best combinations of these abilities together, because there are some for each class. But for the meantime, you can load abilities into here. And you get these, as you're leveling up, you get better and better ones. So you have the items, the actions, and then these essences. And these essences are your bread and butter, especially if you are really struggling at certain walls in the area. So you can get these, and some of them give you like leech, so you can get like health back on kills and stuff like that. And I'll discuss the optimal ways to obtain all of those once we get there. So moving on, let's talk about what's actually out on the battlefield. Encounters in Bozja are split up into two categories. There are skirmishes and critical engagements. Skirmishes are these little pink icons that appear on the map, and those are basically like fates. You just go to that area, there's a little event that occurs, maybe there's some enemies, or maybe you collect something for somebody, and completing those will reward you a small amount of metal. Completing certain engagements or skirmishes will spawn a critical engagement, and that will be able to be teleported to no matter where you are on the map through the Resistance Recruitment button on your Resistance HUD. And those will give you a notification when they appear, and participating in those nets you a significant amount of metal, but of course they're dangerous and they have some pretty hectic mechanics in them. So make sure you go in with a party of people, or when you go in alone, you look for a party. Now, sometimes it can be frustrating if you can't find a party, so I'm going to give you a little bit of advice to be able to make your own parties really easily. Now, I didn't know about this until frighteningly recently, but if you're looking to form a party, there's a little icon that appears above other people's names when they've just left a party and are not in one. It's a little like play icon with a small yellow box around it. And what that means is that that person can be invited to a party. So when you teleport to a critical engagement, or if you're just running around the wasteland of Bozja, you can find people to join your party very, very easily that way. Feel free to just invite them. Odds are, if they're on their own, they're probably looking for a party as well. So that's a really good way. Don't always feel like you have to rely on other people to invite you to a party, because those are the people that end up making parties. So those are the two types of engagements in Bozja. So let's talk about progression through the areas, and then finally talk about lost actions and more of the meta of Bozja. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do now is go over the different features that you unlock with each resistance rank. So starting off at level 1, that's just the starting rank, and then you get your first quest at level 2, Lost No Longer. And once you complete that quest, you can continue to appraise fragments until you get to level 5. That's when you do On the Offensive, and that gives you the second area. And then you can appraise additional fragments that you get from there. You continue to level up. You basically get a quest each level at this point. You get time to focus, then third times the charm at level 7. At level 8, you get pressing forward and the third area. So by level 8, you have all the areas unlocked, and you can get Mettle a lot faster. At level 9, you have 2 quests in a row. And then at level 10, you do the Lady of the Blades, and you unlock Castrum, Lacus, Litore, which is mandatory to complete to continue this quest line. And I'll briefly go into the discussion of that now before we go into the further levels and the next zone, which is Zadnor. Castrum is an in-world sort of raid that works in the same way as the Baldesian Arsenal does in Hydatos and Eureka, but it's a lot easier, way easier. And if you don't have context for that, it works like any other critical engagement, where you basically queue up for it, and then once you're in there, you can't change jobs, and you go through a series of bosses until you get to the end. So I'm just going to give you a sort of crash course on some information you should know going into there. The first thing you should know going into there is that you can take lost actions in, and again, when we get to the end of this video, I'll discuss the optimal lost actions and things like that. So you'll have to watch all this before going into Bozja, but it'll make sense because the stuff you can only get in Zadnor. Also, it's really important to have a party. A lot of the tasks that occur in this area are split into parties, and if you join a party, your party leader can lead you through. Don't be afraid to experiment with different areas. Like if you fought the boss on the bottom, like the first boss is 2 bosses. You can either go to the top or go to the bottom. Try out both. If you've only done the last fight, again, which is split up into 2. If you've only done Dewan, fight Leon. It's a lot easier than it seems. This is just encouragement to try to do all the content in it because it's really fun. But yeah, so there's a lot of coordination that goes on there. Just what's important is if it's your first time there, listen to the other people that are there. They'll give you guidance. It's one of those sort of things. There are detailed guides to Castrum, Lacus, Litore, which I've linked in the description, but ultimately you should just be able to listen to the other people in your party and be able to find your way that way. So once you've finished Castrum, Lacus, Litore, and you've finished the Save the Queen quest line in this area, we can return to Gangos to start to unlock Zadnor. Coming out to Gangos, you can talk to our boy Marsak here, which if you've progressed in the story, you'll know exactly how great he is. And he will give us the quest line to unlock Zadnor. Now, if you don't have this ability, it's because you need to finish patch 5.4 until you unlock this. Futures rewritten. So make sure you have that completed before you do this. And yeah, so talking to him will unlock Zadnor. And we'll briefly discuss how Zadnor differs, because there's a couple ways that it's different until we get to the more advanced features of Bozja and Zadnor. All right, so welcome to Zadnor. This zone is a lot more straightforward, a lot easier, and most importantly, you get way more metal for doing everything. For that reason, it's really important that as soon as you unlock the ability to go to Zadnor, you're done in the Bozjan Southern Front. They've got their act together. You can come here now and start progressing through this area. You just get way more, and if you want to hit the cap for metal, you're gonna have to come here. You only really want to go back to Bozja if you're trying to get your field notes, which I'll discuss once we're done talking about the overview. So once you're here, it is again split up into 3 different zones. Mettle and resistance rank are like way easier to get. There is a higher gap between them now, but you get way more. It's a lot faster. So anyways, as soon as you get to level 16 and you're here, you can complete the Resolve Unshaken quest, and that gives you the ability to appraise even more fragments. From there, you have a filler level, and then at 18, you can do Where Eagles Roost, which gives you the second area on the map. And at level 20, you can do Reaching Out. At 22, you unlock the third area with the quest In Their Shadow. At 23, you get Renewed Focus, and then at 25, you get March of the Bloody Queen, which unlocks the Dalriada. The Dalriada is awesome. It is a great way to do your resistance weapon, which I haven't talked about in this video, but the Dalriada is a great way to get a lot of those fragments. It's also a great way to get XP, which is a huge reason why I love Zadnor. You can level up your XP here in an incredible way. So once you've finished the Dalriada, you have finished in Bozja and Zadnor, and that is the conclusion of the story as of right now. So that's it. You're done. If you've finished all that, then you're completely done, and we can actually get into some of the meta content in the area as far as lost actions go, as far as duels, and some of the more high-end stuff. So let's get into that. So once you reach resistance rank 25, you're able to exchange the excess metal that you have in for proofs of metal, which you can use for permanent buffs. These buffs, the Ray of Succor, the Ray of Fortitude, and the Ray of Valor, all give you different defensive, healing, or combat buffs. The Ray of Fortitude gives you a bonus to your maximum HP, plus 5% per stack, and that has 10 stacks. The Rays of Valor gives you plus 3% damage per stack, and the Rays of Succor give you plus 10% healing per stack, and there is 10 stacks. That only affects your attacks that have healing potency. Your life drain, like Essence of the Beast, doesn't count for that. Okay, so on the topic of lost actions, there's a lot of really nitty-gritty stuff you can do with it, but I hope to provide you just some general ideas and strategies you can use for them. In the description, I have a website that shows all of the lost actions and where you can unlock them. So yeah, let's just get into the generalities of it. So first of all, it's really important to just use an essence, whichever ones you have, once you get to the level that you can actually use them. Even if you don't have one that I've mentioned here, but you can do any with the class, it's usually worth it using at least one of them, except for maybe like a regular essence, which makes you take more damage. But anything that can improve your survivability is good. Now, remember, if you change jobs, you don't keep these, so make sure you're the job that you want before you actually do it. That's very important. So pick the job that you want to play, and then pick the actual essence that you want to use. But in any case, use an essence. If you're in Delibrum or Castrum, or even just on the field, it's important to use these. There are also some general items that are really useful in these situations. So you have the Resistance Potion Kit and Ether Kit, and those are really cheap and really useful. And also Lost Reflect is very useful, but not as easy to get. So I just suggest these are all just good things to have in your holster if you need that extra little bit, and it's really useful if you're doing content in these areas. There are some just really good essences in general that I'll discuss with each of the classes now. So starting with melee, there are some abilities. Lost Rampage is super useful. It is a wide 300 potency AoE that doesn't drop off. So you can just spam it, and that does a lot of damage. People don't use these, but it's quite underrated, and I highly suggest you do it. There is also the combo of combining Lost Focus with Lost Slash, and then any class skill that guarantees crits. So it basically is like a melee LB3. If you want as well, you can also add the Banner of Noble Ends or Honored Sacrifice onto that. And it just gives you like a lot of bonuses. This is really useful if you're cluster farming or anything like that. Yeah. So moving on from that, you have Essence of the Beast for melee is really good. It basically heals you on hit, so it's great for a lot of different situations. But if you combine it with the Banner of Honored Sacrifice and Assassination, again, it does a stupid amount of damage and a lot of self-heals. Moving on to casters, you have Lost Burst, which is their version of Lost Rampage, which is again a spammable wide area 300 potency AoE. You also have a way to sort of respec into a healer if you need to. You can combine Essence of the Savior with Lost Cure 2 and Lost Cure 4, and that makes you better than most actual healers. This is really useful if you're playing Red Mage, for example, and you need more heals in the party. You also have the ability of Flare Star. And if you use Flare Star and Ether Kit, you can negate a lot of the downsides that presents. And you can just kind of stack any sort of damage boost on top of Flare Star, and that just makes it absolutely crazy. Yeah, so onto healers. You have Seraph Strike. That's a very large DPS boost, and it's good for like White Mage and Scholar. You can add Lost Font of Magic, Banner of Noble Ends, Banner of Honored Sacrifice, and Chain Spell, and that's like really crazy outside of bosses, but if you do it, it's still super strong. The mana consumption can be a little bit too much if you're worried about, or if you have Lucid Dreaming off a cooldown, but it's really good on classes like White Mage and Scholar. Most of the time, you probably want to use the Aether Weaver essence. And then so you get a bigger DPS boost with the Profane. And yeah. Another generally good option for healers is the Essence of the Ordained. This is especially useful if you are solo healing or there's just like a low amount of healers in a party. And it has some good bonuses with Chain Spell. One of the big benefits is that you get a really increased success rate for Lost Death. So in Castrum, Lacus, Litore, there is a stage where you have to protect prisoners, and several of the areas are guarded by these high health single enemies, and sometimes having a healer with Ordained and a Lost Death is the difference between saving a prisoner and them succumbing to the 12th Legion. So yeah. In addition to that, you have Templar, which is just something that might be useful for you if you want to stay alive in situations that might be a little bit hairy. But overall, you want to use the ones that I said. So just some weird pieces of information concerning the lost actions. There's some weird combos that you can do. So one of them, having Essence of the Watcher and then Lost Swift or Lost Impetus, reduces most of your cooldowns by like 60%. For yourself and 25% for AoEs. This is really useful if you use it alongside the Watcher's bonus on Chain Spell, because that allows classes like Black Mage and Summoner to just ignore cast times. And so if you ever see people in Dalriada, like Black Mage is pulling like 50k DPS, that's probably how they're doing it. Yeah, so there are also some essences, the pure essences that you use in Delibrum, that have special effects. Typically, those really only matter when you're doing Delibrum Savage, which I'm not going to cover in this video. But the biggest one is the fact that Indomitable reduces the chance of Lost Sacrifice killing you. But that is, again, only relevant in Delibrum Regine Savage, where you can't res. And the Pure Elder Essence buffs Cure 4 as well. So in general, any essences that give you lifesteal are OP as hell. And there are some strange combinations. You should always be reading these to see what kinds of stuff you can craft together. When I talk about duels, there's some really weird stuff people do with these, so there's a lot of cool combinations, and I love this mechanic, so just go nuts with it. So the next thing I wanted to discuss briefly was just field notes and how they work. Field notes are somewhat relevant because if you get all of them, you get a really sick amount. I just have in the description a spreadsheet to all the different field notes and where to get them. But if you go into the duty section, you go to collection in your character, you can click field record and you can view all of the field notes that you've gotten. So this allows you to see which ones you need, and you can just cross-reference those with the link in the description to see which ones you have to get. Yeah, so finally we're going to talk about duels very briefly. Okay, so the last thing I want to briefly touch on is duels. Now, this video would be an hour long if I went through every tutorial for every duel, but effectively, if you avoid getting hit in certain critical engagements, you can actually get chosen for a duel. So those ones, again, are in the description, but if you get chosen for a duel, it means you avoided all the avoidable damage in a critical engagement, and you're sort of like put on a priority list to get in. These are super difficult combat encounters where if you win them, you get a lot of rewards. You get really rare field notes, you get 99 lockboxes, and more importantly, you give everybody around you a buff. So what's relevant for you guys in this video is if you see somebody doing a duel, go there and stand by the immediate area because it gives you a boost to your XP and metal that you obtain. So that's really good. And I'm going to just post a link in the description for the guides to the different duels that you can do because I personally haven't even done the duels. They're way too difficult for me, but there are some interesting cheeses that you can do to get through them. And I highly recommend that you just check those videos out if you're interested in the duels. So that's basically everything about Zadnor and Bozja. Hopefully this can help you level up some alt jobs and just get things like that worked out, or just be a time killer before Endwalker. If you set your sights on it, you could definitely finish this before Endwalker. So don't let your dreams be dreams, and I'll see you out on the battlefield. On to the outro of the video. Alright, this is the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching if you watch this all the way to the end. I hope this was informative and makes it an easier time for you to do Bozja. I've been talking about making this video forever now, and I've finally actually done it. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoy. And there's definitely time with the new delay to do this before Endwalker. I made and edited this whole video on Twitch, so if you want to take part in that process, check out the description and go give me a follow on Twitch. I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, I'll see you guys. Let me know in the comments your experiences in Bozja. We are brothers in arms. We've fought together for the homeland of the Hrothgar. So, you know, we're we're a band of brothers now. All right, I'll see you guys later.